Hello and welcome to a new video. Today we're gonna take a look at the top teams for the Great League Remix Cup. The Remix Cup is a Great League Cup where the top 20 Pokemon that's been used from players above Ace got banned. I'm actually kind of curious how Skarmory and Frostas ended up in this one. I don't really feel like this is like those Pokemon are really that common in the Great League anymore. Of course, in like special cups they would be kind of common, but still they're going to be banned here for this one. Otherwise, a lot of Pokemon that does make a lot of sense that they got banned here. So very interesting to have a meta without a Lantern, without the Ninetales, without the Noctowl. All those Pokemon that you're going to encounter all the time, all of them going to be banned. And we're going to take a look now at the meta for this one. Let's see here first the meta. It's going to be interesting because you have a new top meta Pokemon for this one, which of course going to be Carbink. If you have a Carbink, you can definitely use it, and it's definitely the best Pokemon to use in this meta. It's even better than in the Open Great League, of course, because there are a lot of Steel types banned, which are usually the best Pokemon for the Great League. So this is going to be an interesting one here, for sure. So this Pokemon is going to be very strong, but also another thing, of course, the bans are based on the last season. So all the Pokemon that got buffed this season are not really included in the bans. So you're going to see a lot of buffed Pokemon are going to be up here, like the Sandslash with Drill Run here, or the Wishcast, which has now a little bit more damage output with the Mud Bomb there. Pokemon like Abomasnow, Lurantis, or the Samurott don't really want to use their new moves, either Leaf Edge or like the Liquidation there. They rather go for their normal moves that they had before, but they're still going to be very strong here. Otherwise, Credilli very strong. The normal Stunfisk might have some play as well, as it's just a very decent neutral Pokemon, as you're going to see there as well. But yeah, this is going to be it for the meta. Looks fairly neutral, like a lot of normal type Pokemon. That's also, for example, why the Alolan Sandslash has Powder Snow as the main fast move, but you can actually still go for the Shadow Claw, and you should be fine. Let's take a look at the team number 1, and of course we're going to have the Hotline Carbink, which is going to be our team around the Carbink. And this is going to be, this is going to be one of the strongest teams that you can run for this meta for sure. We're going to have the Double as a say so of the Carbink in the lead and the Cresselia in the back. This is going to give you great coverage against a lot of Pokemon. Honestly, the moveset on Double, I'm actually kind of curious for this meta. I feel like there could be some potential for running a Wild Charge over Payback this time around. There are quite some Pokemon where you kind of want to have Payback, for example, Cresselia. But Wild Charge is going to give you coverage against Flying type Pokemon, which are kind of common here still with, for example, the Pidgeot as well. But also just going to give you neutral coverage against Carbink if we're going to encounter this Pokemon more often. So definitely a very decent team here, as you can see as well on the screen right now. There's basically nothing that can really destroy this team. This team is just so balanced and so strong. Double is the best say-swap, and Double going to be available for most people at the weekend. In the weekend we're going to have an event where you can get the Double in the wild, which is going to be a really cool thing to have. Definitely check that event out. Catching some of these events going to be a very cool one for the Go Battle League as well, because the Voodoo is going to be back. So let's take a look here now at the next team. We're going to have here for the second team a cheap team here. We're going to have a Flyer that needs 10k, like all of the Pokemon needs 10k for the secondary charge move. That's why I chose them. This is the cheapest team that you can run. The Blastoise is actually fairly decent as cup, which you're going to take a look at here as well. I would still recommend you to run the Double as a say swap though, because it's just a little bit safer, but it's still a very strong Pokemon. As I'm going to just showcase how strong Blastoise actually is, it actually has quite a few decent matchups, and even the matchups that they're going to lose here, or like apparently lose here, it's going to be one of the strongest Pokemon. Also, note here, just looking at this, I'm curious how the Skarmory got banned, but not the Lickitung. Like, Lickitung is still here available. It's most likely because it's above Ace, and like not a lot of people have the XL Lickitung, but Lickitung is still available, which I don't understand. But this is going to be the cheapest team that you can run. Again, Pidgeot lead going to be really decent right now. This Pokemon has access to, of course, Feather Dance to debuff opponent's attack, and also is a very great synergy between the Flying type Pokemon and the Water type Pokemon. Of course, it's going to make you weak against Electric type Pokemon, which is definitely an issue, but I don't really see any decent Electric type Pokemon in this meta other than Pachirisu, and I don't really think that a lot of people are going to have this Pokemon because it's original and has to be fully XL'd. So it should still be fine. We also still have a Mudboy in the back that can definitely deal very well with Electric type Pokemon, so even if you don't go for the Blastoise say swap, you don't even have the Electric type weakness. Let's take a look at the team number 3. Baneful Bunker, team around the Toxapex. Toxapex is a very strong Pokemon, and again here you can have the say-swap of the Vigoroth or also the Dubwool. Dubwool again is kind of preferred. I put the Vigoroth in here just to have some more different Pokemon to use. But in the back, we're going to have here the Scrafty, which of course going to give you the very common Dark plus Poison type core, as well as we going to have the Lurantis or also the Chestnut. Chestnut and Lurantis are actually kind of some Pokemon that a lot of people I don't really think really look at. But those are going to be very cool meta breakers for this meta, because grass type Pokemon that are going to have coverage for normal type Pokemon, and there are a lot of Mud Boys, there are a lot of normal type Pokemon as said prior, so those are going to be very, very decent. And as you're going to see here right now, it's going to be a very strong team. The Toxapex is going to have a lot of decent matchups, and the Scrafty, Vigoroth, or even also the grass type going to give you some coverage against the Pokemon that the Toxapex doesn't want to face. For example, those Wishcares or whatever, they definitely go down here. Also, Toxapex is going to still have a very decent matchup against Cresselia, which is cool to see. But this team in general looks very safe. There are a lot of Pokemon that like look a little bit difficult here for deal with. For example, the Golbat going to be a little bit tricky. But yeah, other than the Gliscor, to be fair, that you can deal with everything. Gliscor can be actually a little bit tricky because it's going to be able to outspeed a lot of Pokemon and just going to have those stab moves. So Gliscor can be a little bit of a core breaker for his team for sure though. So be careful. I didn't really expect a mini Gliscor, but you never know. Well, let's take a look at the next one, Quack for the World. We're going to have the Quagsire here. Very strong Pokemon, buffed this season with Mud Bomb. And we're going to have the Pidgeot as a Saisob and the Charizard in the back. This is basically a similar idea to the second team. They're going to basically just flip that around. Going to have the Water Ground type in the lead and a Saisob of one of the Flying type Pokemon. Golbat also works out as a Saisob. Also, the Manabas works out as a very decent Saisob here as well. There are a lot of good Flying type Pokemon available. And as you're going to see right now, it gives you great coverage. Pidgeot looks like a kind of meta breaker, but you have your own Pidgeot in there as well, and Charizard. Both of them are very neutral against each other. Pidgeot is always a sim hero, so like it is definitely something you can deal with. And the rest also looks really, really decent, so definitely a strong team. Let's take a look at team number 5. We're going to have Machamp here, a team around Machamp with the Alolan Sandslash in the lead, the Surfetch as a Saisob. With Night Slash, you can also run the move Brave Bird, but that's just going to give you better coverage against Pokemon like Cresselia. But of course, Elite is supposed to counter Cresselia. That's also where you're going to have the Shadow Claw on there. I really think that Shadow Claw is better for this team here. As well as, yeah, you see already how strong Machamp is. Like, Machamp beats a lot of Pokemon from the top meta. This Pokemon going to be super strong. I kind of want to make a showcase for Machamp as well again, because this Pokemon going to be insanely good. Otherwise, you can see here some other options as well with the Pidgeot or also the Poison Boys there in the back. The Pidgeot going to be only really viable, the Poison Boys in the back only really viable with Pidgeot, while you can use Pidgeot with also the other two fighters. It doesn't really matter. But if you want to use the Sneasler as well as the Toxicroak, you have to have Pidgeot in the lead to counter those Mud Boys, because otherwise Mud Boys can run through your team. So, next team here, we're going to have two Shield Puppies, which are going to be around Scrafty lead. Scrafty lead going to be really strong, as you're going to see here right now. This Pokemon can basically realign against a lot of Pokemon, which is really cool to see. But also, if you don't get a decent lead for it, you can still swap out here in either the Mew or the Pidgeot. Mew is also a very decent Pokemon in this matter, because you're just going to be very neutral. But Pidgeot going to be most likely preferred again, because just with the Feather Dance is going to be very strong. I have the Emolga in the back here, or the Carbink. The Cresselia also works out pretty well, but what the Emolga and the Carbink gives you is a better coverage against Flying type Pokemon, which might be an issue for the Scrafty in the lead. But in general, Emolga Scrafty core looks like a lot of fun, because it's going to be basically perfect. Like, your elite going to lose against Fighting type and Flying type Pokemon, and Emolga can counter both of them. Of course, Fairy type Pokemon can be a little bit of an issue, but other than Carbink, there are not a lot of decent Fairy type Pokemon allowed here, so definitely a decent team here as well. Team number 7 here, we're going to have Bolts of Steelix, which are going to be around the Steelix itself. I didn't think that this team would be as decent, but it looks really good, in, like on paper at least. And Steelix going to give this, like as a Saisob here, actually really decent coverage against Flying type Pokemon. If you're going to be able to get some Dragon Tales through, the Psychic Fang is going to hit quite hard, and you will be able to get some decent damage against them and bait out some Pokemon that are decent against Steel type Pokemon, because there are not a lot of Steel type Pokemon around. I kind of wanted to try to make a team around it, because usually Steel type Pokemon are decent. I think it's also going to be the case here. And together with especially Machamp, this team going to be very strong. The Surfetch going to give you also better coverage against Mud Boys though, so keep that in mind. But Machamp, I think, is the better Pokemon to use here. Togedemaru, you can also use Magnezone in the back, is very, very decent as well, as we can now move on into team number 8. Team number 8. going to be around a core breaker, which is going to be Toxicroak. This Pokemon is actually pretty low rated for this meta, but actually does so much damage against a lot of Pokemon. And I think it's going to be one of the strongest Pokemon that you can run. And here we're going to have a team that is going to be with Mandibuzz and Willoughby. That's kind of more of a fun one, of course. But you can also just go for Pidgeot in the back, Charizard in the back, all those good stuff. Like this definitely should work out really, really well there for you. Mainly Pidgeot over Charizard. But you can also use, for example, Jumpluff in the back if you wanted to. Like, use Credelia, Safe Swap, Jumpluff in the back, and this should also work out fairly well. You just need to kind of have an answer for, like, Ground-type Pokemon. That's basically it. That's why you have some Flying types in the back. But actually, Credelia, Safe Swap together with Toxicroak might be also a really good shout for this meta. So definitely try that one out. Let's take a look at the second to last team for today. We're going to have here right now the Team Olerigan Rocket, which is going to be, of course, with the Cresselia and the Diggersby. I'm fairly certain that he's like one of the players that really enjoyed this core in the main competitive scene. So yeah, we're going to have here right now the very strong core of this, like those two Pokemon together. We have the Vigoroth as a safe stop. Again, Double might be the better one, but if you don't have a Double, you can still go for the Vigoroth. But of course, Double going to be one of the best and cheapest Pokemon that you're going to be able to get during the weekend. So that's definitely something that you should try out as well. And here we're going to see as well the team is looking really, really decent. Like, there's nothing really that completely walls you. Double can be a little bit of an issue, but also not really. Like, even Diggersby has some decent play against Double there. Pidgeot can be also a little bit of an issue, though. That's definitely for sure. But you can actually use Lucario on the back as well, which gives you a unique Pokemon. I think Lucario has some potential in this cup. Maybe I'm going to try it out as well, because you're going to be able to counter even something like a Pidgeot, most likely. And it has like good coverage, and it's actually a really, really decent Pokemon to use right now. Lucario, I think, going to be a great Pokemon to use for this cup. But yeah, that's going to be it for this team. Very strong team as well. As always, by the way, if you didn't know, the first one is the lead, the second one is a safe swap, and the last Pokemon is your closer. It's for every team, every video. But yeah, we're gonna go for the final team for today. And of course, we're going to have a team around Jellicent, a Pokemon that is recently got buffed with Surf in the last season beforehand, but it's still not banned, and going to be a very strong pick for this meta, because you're going to be able to beat quite a few Pokemon here. It's a very neutral Pokemon, it's a very bulky Pokemon that can counter, for example, Machamp, which is really good here. As an alternative, we also have Buzzwole. The issue with this lead here is, if you run the Jellicent, you're going to be a little bit weak against Scrafty. If you run the Buzzwole, you're going to be a little bit weak against Toxicroak. So you're always going to have like one fighter that's going to be a little bit of an issue, but I don't really expect to see a lot of them anyway, so this should still be a very decent team. Safe Swap of Dewgong going to be the best one that you can go for. If you don't have a Dewgong, Celio actually has some potential as well. And also, of course, in the back here, we're going to have Pokemon that are double weak to fighting, so we can bait out the fighting type Pokemon with your safe swap and have then the ice types in the back still. And it's going to be a very decent team as well to use. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like. Those are always a lot of effort to do. And yeah, that's going to be it for today. And I'm going to see you tomorrow for some gameplay for this cup, as well as for the top teams for the Open Great League. So stay tuned for this, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you then. Bye bye.